I've given
Yuki the vendor. I'm playing Mr. Boltyn for Hero Jump.
Alrighty, folks, it is time. Our next quarterfinal match. Two heroes that haven't necessarily been at the tip-top of the meta, especially one of the heroes on the left side of your screen there, Sir Boltyn, who has been a hero that has been an exciting one since his debut in Monarch, capable of some incredibly powerful things, a kind of variable game plan between the two different types of weapons that he wants to bring to a fight. But Yuki Lee Bender showing that in an Icelander-less meta, Boltyn can be a good pick.
Yeah, I love the way that you described this matchup at the start when you were talking about titans of the game, because that is 100% what the players are. Brody, although very young, a ton of accolades already. Yuki Lee Bender, one of the best players in North America, no doubt about it. But also it's a bit of an ironic naming because the heroes have not historically been titans. That's not to say that you can't find success with Boltyn. It's not to say that Azalea hasn't finally come into her own since the Outsiders release, but neither of these heroes have ever been the kind of top dog in a meta. They've never been the apex predator. And yet we have Brody, again, on Azalea. This is how he started the Realm year. We have Yuki on Boltyn, and they have been obviously doing well because they're in the top 8, but they've been very impressive when we've seen them on the broadcast. Aelia is a great pick into this meta because of all of the aggression that we were expecting, where there was a lot of Phais, a lot of Katsus, the boost dashes. So all of these arrows, especially Red in the Ledger, cards like Remorseless, they've been very impactful. And then again, on the other side, Boltyn, you've got a lot of things that block for 3, a pretty big equipment suite, but also the ability to switch between Raiden and a more mid-range game plan, and obviously the Centauri Saber combo, which we've already seen once this weekend pop off, presenting 43 damage in one turn, also gained 9 health for Yuki in that matchup. This is going to be interesting because obviously Azalea, a lot of disruption, the ability to go tall, but on the other side, if you don't have that disruption, if she finds the combo pieces, depending on which version she's bringing, we could see a Sabers combo that just kind of ends the game. But even without Sabers, if she's on Raiden, if she opts for a more consistent game plan, those Lumina turns are very, very impactful as well.
Absolutely, and the other thing that cannot be, kind of overlooked here is that these players did meet in the Swiss rounds. We did get to watch their game back and forth, and it did end with Brodie Spurlock able to take the victory over Yuki. So these players, not only have they seen each other in Swiss, they've kind of gotten a sense of each other's play styles on the deck. You know that they've played against each other at premier events plenty of times, but it's something different when you play against the same deck piloted by the same pilot in Swiss and in top 8, and both of these players, neither of them necessarily known for these heroes. Brody's definitely, Brody plays good decks, and he plays decks that he likes, but he makes sure he plays good decks for the most part most of the time. We did see him take this deck across the finish line at the Chicago Brawl, the first of the Brawl series this year that led into this 20K Invitational. But Yuki, the Boltyn pick, that took everybody by surprise. That took everybody off guard. So Brody definitely knows Yuki as a player, but helpful for him that he got to also see what she's like as a Boltyn player yesterday.
And it helped because he got to get a sense of her game plan. She's bringing what I call the switch hitter version. She has both Centauri Sabers and Raiden, and I believe the first time they played, she opted for Raiden, going for that more consistent game plan as opposed to all in on the combo, likely trying to dodge the disruption. And so that allows Brody to kind of plan for that a little bit more, where beforehand you kind of had to potentially hedge your game plan one way or the other. As you said, both players know each other because they've played each other several times on other heroes, but also once already in this tournament. And we're going to see if she pulls out Raiden again this time. I suspect that will be the case because, yes, she broke out Boltyn. Might not have been what folks expected, but it was very apparent that she knew this hero and knows the matchups. And, yes, it is going to be Raiden. That also means Soulbond Resolve as opposed to Courage of Bladehold because it's going to give you the ability to get those extra charges. Still going to bring the snaps because you obviously want to potentially power up a strong, via the Vanguard turn. And if they don't connect with V and have the option to give it go again, you can still do that with the snaps and then carry on to a big impactful turn. So That is going to be what we see. It's going to be Raiden Bolton against Azalea, and the players are ready.
Well, Azalea also has, within her disruption suite, plenty of abilities with the inertia effects, with the seek and destroy effects to disrupt her opponent's arsenals. And for Boltyn, even this Raiden build has very specific cards that they want in the arsenal, but the Sabres build simply needs to have certain cards to pull off the combo. So if Yuki did try to bring those Sabres and wasn't able to stick something like Illumina Ascension in her arsenal and make sure it was going to hang out there for a while, then she might have trouble executing and finishing the game. So Raiden is going to be the play here for Yuki. It's time to get the first game action. It is the second quarterfinals here of the Realm Rumble 20K Invitational. It's time to just immediately go ahead and activate the Iron Song versus. Let's get a card into the pitch, send it to the bottom, that Bolt of Courage. Let's get a Spirit of Arena into play. Don't need to charge it. How about we just place it into the arena?
Yeah, that Brody doing the old, hey, I know that card exists, but remind me, what does it do again? Let's go ahead and read it. And, that's always one of my favorite things to see on the broadcast, because that means that you're seeing a deck that's not necessarily, a meta juggernaut, right? Once a deck becomes known, I think all the players are familiar with all of the cards. But again, Boltyn, while still viable, has not necessarily been a powerhouse of a card. And no attacks necessarily thrown from the side of Yuki. You don't want to let Brody filter his hand, but she did still make use of that turn 0, developed the Spirit, got a card in Arsenal, and also by going first, you deny Azalea the ability to load her own Arsenal and set up for the future. So Brody will be kind of starting from scratch here. His turn has started. We can tell because of the counter on the Tunic already.
Yeah, Yuki could have attacked with the Bolt of Courage and charged the Spirit of Irina, but it doesn't go to Soul. It always still just goes straight into the arena. So she wasn't able, didn't seem like on that turn, to find a way to naturally charge her Soul, which is something that, of course, Boltyn wants to do. So instead, opting to just pitch a card into the Versus, get that good red card to the bottom of the deck for the second cycle if they're able to get there. And now it's on to Brody, who's going to go ahead and load in with that Death Dealer. Let's throw a Remorseless into our arsenal, load it up and ready to fire, draw that card, Death Dealer. Such a powerful effect. And we'll have to see how he can continue the turn. If he's got some pumps, if he's got some go-again attacks. I don't believe Brody is on the Enlightened Strikes. Not as afraid of Warmonger's Diplomacy, but luckily for him, able to find that Ravenous Rabble here. Going to come in for 4.
Yeah, he's coming in with the Rabble. Such a wonderful card for Azalea because you get the information on the top. You get that go-again naturally. You don't have to play it from the arsenal like your arrows, so you can load a card like Remorseless, then go with the Rabble. Also, just kind of want to note in the pitch there, that is a Rain Razors, which means you're either setting up for second cycle, or Azalea does have some shuffle effects. So if you have to pitch a powerful card, it's not the end of the world. You could play something like a Knock the Death Whistle later and get that back into the mix. But Yuki's got to decide how they want to deal with this Ravenous Rabble. It is just vanilla damage, no on hits, but obviously damage is still damage. You don't want to take too much of it if you can help it, but Remorseless, the likely follow-up, and if you are looking to block something out, the card with the on-hit makes the most sense.
Yeah, you have to imagine Yuki's not afraid of the Ravenous Rabbles. There's not even, there's very little cards in this list that don't have a nasty on-hit effect. Ravenous Rabble may be one of the only ones, so you got to imagine Yuki's happy to take that one. Looks as though we're going to go ahead and Azalea into that Lace with Inertia that we found on top, basically switching out the Remorseless for the Lace. Time to play the Lace and immediately crack the Bullseye Bracers, because it looks like we have a multiple arrow hand here for Brody. So rather than just fire that single Remorseless and use something like the Snapdragon Scalers into the Bullseye, we're going to draw the card we knew was on top thanks to the Remorseless. Now this is going to go ahead and come in for 9 thanks to the +1 buff from the Bullseye Bracers and the Lace with Inertia. Now it's not just the Remorseless on hit Yuki has to worry about, it's that Arsenal Disruption effect that we were talking about at the top of the show.
Yeah, and you mentioned, hey, it's a multiple arrow hand. It's a multiple Remorseless hand. So Brody opting to say, I want to see if I can guarantee this sticks. I want to punish. This is perhaps a bit of a read, right? Obviously, the Ravenous Rabble has no on-hit, but there is the chance that Yuki was holding onto her hand because perhaps she had a really impactful turn, and Brody rightfully says, okay, well, if you're going to hold all of your cards, it's likely because you want to play a bunch of them, so I want to punish you as much as possible for you holding on to so many cards. So I'm going to Lace this Remorseless, also try to get the on-hit, leak some damage. She does opt to block at 5 of it. Snatch should only have the 2, so we're going to go down to 32. And the Lace effect and the Remorseless effect will both be live. So that is the Inertia token. And then we're going to put that Remorseless there just as a reminder.
Azalea just the queen of the gift giving. Brody really getting the holiday spirit with this deck, presenting plenty of tokens almost every turn. Just, hey, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's an Inertia. It's going to be a take flight. Coming in, we're going to charge that Snatch, so going to have the go again, take the 1 damage thanks to the Remorseless trigger, so not going to have an arsenal to worry about. Will be Yuki, but will be able to, if wanting, potentially give the go again depending on how Brody decides to block this and come in with the Raiden. But to do that, the card's going to have power greater than space.
And if Brody has a really spicy hand, you might just let this through because, yes, there's the go again, but there's no other real relevant on hits here. So if Brody prizes his hand, he might just trade damage because he's already got the health lead. He can kind of use that as a bit of a resource. If he's got a bit of a clunky hand, he might block some of this damage and then go with a small, like 1 arrow turn where you set up for a future turn. But take flight, as you said.
Oh, it just has the go again. Wait,
Yeah,
it doesn't need Boltyn. Take flight just is one of the ones that just got the go again.
Yeah. I was going to say take flight, as you said, threatens go again, but then I realized, no, that is the
hold
one
on.
that just naturally has
got
go
that.
again.
It's just got that stuff. Gonna be so Raiden will be the follow-up here. No frailty token to worry about, just the Inertia. So this is gonna be 7 damage total coming from Yuki. Can also use that final resource to go into the Iron Song versus and threaten the Courage token if the Raiden does hit. Brody gonna have to be thinking about that as well.
That is an on-hit, but that's one of those ones that Flake and I like to refer to as just the bonus damage on-hit, right? Because that Courage token would pop up. It would just represent bonus damage later. The reason that the Courage token matters quite a bit in Boltyn is just because if you can utilize combining that with cards like Bolt of Courage, where the on-hit is far more relevant, or with the snatches that we see Yuki running, then that matters a ton. But Brody looks like...
Yeah, we should settle in, Tremor.
Yeah.
This is an untimed Brody Spurlock match.
It's an untimed Brody round. I was going to say, it looked like he is agonizing over this decision.
I hope you don't have any flights home, man, because we could be here a while.
Oh, no. I definitely have a flight, and Brody is going to make me miss it. But I will invoice him.
Okay.
And it'll be okay. All right, the damage is being locked in, kind of what I expected here because no real on hit. And then you called it. You got that free resource. You might as well use it. So we will activate Iron Sun versus throw the Raiden. That's going to connect as well. So 3 damage and a Courage token will be generated.
Courage tokens also relevant in Boltyn thanks to the ability to give an attack +1 power, immediately making Boltyn able to use his soul to give it the go again if he so desires. Yuki, however, a little soul light at this point, only able to put that snatch in there. So needs to find another way to get some cards into her soul in order to power up the rest of her cards.
Yeah, the soul is light, but it's also light on light cards, with the snatch being the only one there. Usually we're seeing those yellow light cards get added to the soul. Brody activated the Skullbone Cross Wrap to start the turn. We have I believe that's a Sleet Dart showing in the arsenal. Taking a long time to decide what to do with this cross wrap, so might have found something that is a little math intensive. Brody, a lot of times when he takes a bit to decide, it's because whatever he's seeing is less than what he'd hoped for. In the past, on the broadcast, for example, it's usually like, oh, I wanted to dominate an arrow, but the arrow that's being presented to me is like a blue spire sniping or something. And then he has to decide, is the trade-off in damage still worth it? And it does look like after the Skullbone here, we might be still considering activating Azalea.
You have to imagine he wants to use all of those cards or was too worried about the Boltyn ability to block with any attack actions because he did keep every single one. Took all that damage, kept all the cards.
Azalea is activated, and it's an endless arrow this time around. I do expect a bunch of non-attack buffs to pop out. I do see an Infecting Shot there as well in the hand. And then trying to judge by the art again. It's kind of a hard angle. I think that might be either read the glide path or something like that.
Endless Arrow also not going to have the go again naturally. So if we're either going to stack a bunch of things onto this arrow in order to make sure that that dominate is relevant, or looks like it might be a Snapdragon Scalers kind of right off the bat here after the Azalea activation. So here's 4 with go again, or no, sorry, here's 4 with dominate, but no go again yet represented for Brodie Spurlock. So Yuki probably looking at this and thinking, what's the rest of this turn looking like? Because there's a bunch of cards left in hand, and you took all my damage. Can't be for no reason.
You have to assume that it's going to be the snaps that are used here. As you said, a number of cards still in Brodie's hand. I did see that Infecting Shot, but... All right, on the side of Yuki here, we can see quite a bit more of her hand.
Yuki, also the Boltyn deck, part of the last couple sets, have been some nice additions to the armor suite. The Warband Bologna, not only does it help fix a charge-less hand, but it also has that 2-block Tempers, 3-block potential that you have to imagine Yuki's going to want to use. And we're going to immediately cash in that Soulbound Resolve. It's going to be another 2-temper block, utilizing the ability to charge when you defend with it. So now it's going to also prevent the next 1 damage because of that charge, thanks to the Soulbound Resolve, as Yuki's representing there with the Boltyn. So currently representing, blocking out this arrow entirely. And Brody definitely has to throw the Snapdragon Scalers onto this, given that the Endless Arrow otherwise would have just represented the end of the turn.
Yeah, that Endless Arrow would have been the ending arrow if there were no snaps activated there, but the snaps are popped off as we expected, and I think that the non-attack buffs were being saved for this Infecting Shot that we see in the hand, because I think that's a more impactful on-hit than the Endless, especially in this particular matchup, and instead we're going to be loading a Boltyn Shot now.
Another good way to get go again here, and the on-hit effect, if it does go through once we pump it up, will allow Brody to send 3 total arrows on this turn. 1 from the start of the turn with that Endless Arrow, the Boltyn Shot, and then whatever the Boltyn Shot can reload. The question is, how many pumps is Brody going to be able to throw onto this arrow?
And the answer is 2. We're going to lace it twice. I believe that's with Frailty and Bloodrot. So this is going to be a 10-power Boltyn Shot. Still 1 resource floating because of that Deadeye that was pitched. And again, pretty sure that's an Infecting Shot that's also waiting in his hand. So if this connects and the reload goes off, you can load that and then use your 1 resource to send it, which would represent, honestly, a lot of damage. Because assuming that this does connect and the reload triggers, that means that you're already donating the Frailty and 1 Bloodrot, and then that Infecting Shot would likely connect and be a 2nd Bloodrot as well.
An enormous amount of damage
Yeah.
threatened on this turn.
Because Yuki did use the Soulbound to charge, she is limited on the cards in hand. Yes, she still has Iron Sun Versus. She's got the amazing Warband of Bologna, one of those new cards that was recently released. But is that enough? Right? You have to use essentially 2-3 blocks, the Iron Song and the Warband, to cover this.
Or you also have that 1 floating damage prevention, so if you use all the armor to cover it and 2-3 blocks, then you're kind of wasting the value you got from charging off the Soulbound Resolve, and if you were going to not use that 1 damage prevention, you certainly didn't want to charge, because then you could have a card in your hand. Looks as though we're just going to go ahead and let a bunch of this through, which means reload trigger is going to probably trigger here after these.
Yeah, I think they're just resolving Frailty, Bloodrot, then the reload, and then we're going to use that last resource to fire the Infecting. And this should also be connecting, which represents yet another Bloodrot. And this is essentially free damage because she's out of cards in hand. Her turn is going to have to be passing, drawing up, which means no way to pay for these 2 Bloodrots. This is going to end up being a massive turn for Brody.
And Brody, by throwing out that Endless Arrow, even though it didn't have the go again, kind of getting Yuki to block it, because Endless Arrow, we're used to that being such a threatening card from our Lexi days here, but Yuki using the Soulbound Resolve and a card and then charging a card, so that meant her blocking ability.
They're just kind of speeding through the accounting here. She should be at 19 after those Bloodrot Poxes trigger, because her turn is just going to be passed to draw back up. She can't pay for them. The Frailty token goes away as well. But that means that Brody made her take an entire turn off and got her all the way down to 19. Now, he did expend some pretty key cards already, right? He's used his Bullseye Bracers. He's used the snaps. She had no hand, but he also comes into this with no arsenal. But I think if you asked him, he'd say, hey, that trade-off is totally worth it. That is a really large health gap. And yes, she still can have like a multiple Lumina turn. She can use that to potentially gain some health and get back into this. But right now, I have a health lead that I feel pretty comfortable with. And if I can keep my foot on the gas, I might prevent her from being able to set up something like a double Lumina turn.
33 health on the Azalea side to the 19 that Yuki has on Boltyn. It's the second quarterfinals here at the Realm Rumble $20,000 Invitational tournament. We've had 2 days of incredible games that have all led up to this top 8 players, not only here at the tournament, but some of the top 8 players in the entire gosh darn world. These are just a murderer's row of badasses here. I mean, when you look top to bottom, you have not only like incredibly powerful players, but incredibly recognizable names in the scene. People that have been around for a while. Often you have a bunch of content creators up there as well. This is just like such a cool group of folks that have not, we didn't assemble them. They came, they battled their way through the tournaments all year and have come to the tournament now and shown why they're so well known, why they're considered some of the best, because they battled through the rest of the field to become the top 8. And these two are no exception. Yuki Leebender and Brodie Spurlock, 2 of the best in the world, facing down here in the quarterfinals. Yuki's at 19 to Brodie's 33. Let's see how Brodie's going to want to keep up the pressure now that he has no card in the arsenal to start the Skullbone Cross Wrap. And like you said, 2 critical pieces of equipment have been used to put Yuki all the way down to 19.
Yeah. That being said, he does now have that coveted 3 counters on the Fyendal Spring Tunic, which means the Death Dealer is essentially a free activation that can sometimes net you a free card. Might be saving that for a rainy day. Instead, we're just going to start things off with a Codex of Frailty. I was just about to say, traditionally, this is something that Brodie likes to use for a Ravenous Rabble because he can play it immediately, get that information from the top, and again, with the 3 counters on Fyendal Spring Tunic, that will allow him to know whether or not he wants to activate Death Dealer once that's been expended. This also gives him that Ponder token and gives her the Frailty. Frailty relevant if she should decide to attack with the Raiden. Obviously, she has no hardened arsenal right now, but will once this resolves, so it'll also slow that down. This is a great way to start this turn. The Ponder super relevant because he had to expend so many resources the turn prior that guarantees that whatever happens when this turn ends, he will have a card in arsenal. Between Skullbone and Azalea, there's no reason for him to not just blind jam that in the arsenal if his hand is empty when this turn ends.
Also, interestingly, Yuki here, that Frailty token normally makes sure that whatever your opponent, when you play a Codex of Frailty, you can rest easy knowing that whatever they get from their arsenal is powered down by the Frailty token. But the Courage token that she also has from the Iron Song Versus turn means that if she did want to get something like a Snatch or something with a non-hit effect that normally would be neutered by the Frailty token, that Courage is going to go ahead and shore that up, make it a little easier on her. It looks like she's going to go ahead and grab a Take Flight here, one of the ways to naturally have Go Again as long as you charge. And we'll have to see what card she wants to discard as a result.
It will naturally have Go Again, but the other reason I think you want to grab something like a Take Flight is, as you rightfully pointed out earlier, she is still a little soul-starved. Only 2 cards there in the soul at the moment, and if she wants to set up some of these powerful effects later, we talk about that sweet spot kind of being between 2 and 4 cards in the soul. A card like Take Flight allows her to still get the Go Again, but also get more cards into Boltyn's soul for use. And now the Ravenous Rabble comes out. We get the reveal. I believe that's another Deadeye.
Mm-hmm. And even though it's going to make the Ravenous Rabble not nearly as powerful, Brodie electing to keep it on top, given that he knows he's going to draw it off the Death Dealer, and it looks like it's going to be something he wants to attach to whatever arrow he loads in here. So it's going to make for a less powerful Ravenous Rabble, but a more powerful arrow that's going to have most likely an on-hit effect, which is why he's going to go ahead and keep it in there. And yeah, how's that for an on-hit effect? Another Infecting Shot. We're looking at the 3rd Bloodrot token threaten in a row between 2 turns. This is 8 damage, threatening 10. If Yuki decides to take it, Brodie just keeping on the pressure, not necessarily needing to dominate. These arrows are pressure enough in themselves.
Also, the power of that Ravenous Rabble, yeah, it was only for 3, but because it gave him the info, that meant that he could not use that Tunic. save that counter for later because, again, he's going to get that card from the Ponder, so he'll go into the following round with a 5-card hand, potentially a 6-card hand by using that Tunic to activate the Death Dealer and kind of get that free card as a resource. This is a very powerful turn. You're threatening half of the existing health, potentially more if the Bloodrot connects. You've already donated the Frailty token to kind of slow things down a little bit. And then, again, going into the following turn with a full grip and an active Tunic, it's exactly where Brody wants to be. He's setting the tone, setting the pace. This is what we talk about when we talk about tempo, right? Tempo, music term, right? Keeping a certain pace, a cadence.
Music term.
Music term.
Tempo.
Tempo. And that's what he's doing. Right now, he is the conductor of this orchestra.
And he is taking it to a crescendo as he's going to go ahead and connect with that Infecting Shot, meaning another Bloodrot Pox token being created for Yuki Lee Bender. She's going to keep all 3 of those cards, even though she had to lose one to the Codex of Frailty here, which means that Take Flight, it could have been buffed to +1 thanks to the Courage token, but it looks like the Frailty is going to go ahead and have something to say about that. The combination of those two means it's going to be a normal Take Flight coming in 4/4. We have charged on the turn, 1 floating, 1 card left in hand, but Yuki's gone all the way down to 8 here. Without any on hits, you have to imagine that Brody is going to be willing to take a good bit of damage to keep up the pressure. The Ponder token so powerful from the Codex of Frailty, giving Brody the ability to continue the turns that he's had by starting with the Skullbone Cross Wrap and that powerful Opt effect in the Azalea deck.
You know, we talked a bit earlier about how you can feel out your opponent, especially if you've played them once before. One of the other things that Brody probably took away from that first matchup is the fact that Yuki is running 0 blues. So every time he connects with these Bloodrot Poxes, it is representing a lot of bonus damage, but also if she has to pay to prevent it, it means eating up multiple resources from her, right? So right now with 1 card in hand, no resources floating, that Bloodrot Pox is very likely to resolve unless she finds a way to draw additional cards. And that means, again, that'll be the 3rd Bloodrot Pox that is triggered, which is probably why he has put the emphasis and the priority on trying to get these infecting shots to land, knowing that, again, my opponent does not have a good way to get rid of these. A lot of heroes going very light on resources after Icelander has rotated out via Living Legend, and as a result, it's harder to pay that poison tax.
Take Flight coming in 4/4, got the go again. Normally that Courage token would represent a little more damage, but again, Codex of Frailty, such a powerful card, so many effects. Does have the Go Gun, though, and the 1 card in the hand, plus the Raiden we know is coming. However, the Raiden is going to be taken down a peg by the Frailty token, so we'll only be coming in 4/2 on the turn if we get there. Don't know what that last card is for Yuki. Finally got up to 3 soul, but the question is 8 life enough to sustain herself to wherever she's trying to get for those big, powerful turns? Again, with no on-hit effects, you have to imagine Brody's comfortable taking the damage. Looks like that's going to be the case. Going down to 29 to Yuki Lee Bender's 8. Let's see how she wants to continue the turn from here. It's going to be the Iron Song versus utilizing that final pitch floating. She's going to go ahead and make sure that's exactly what she wants to do. Let's give it a think. Let's give it another think. Let's think a second more. The answer is yes. Going to put that resource into it and come in with the Raiden 4/2 here. You have to imagine that card might be going to the arsenal, perhaps a defense reaction.
All right. Now, it was 2. It goes to 3.
Not going to be a defense reaction, though.
Yeah, because of the Boltyn ability, right? Goes to 3, but still fully blocked out by the Endless Arrow. But this is followed up with a Snatch, and I like this. You're trying to get an additional amount of damage in, but then you'll still have a card that you can throw into the arsenal. Does, however, mean that unless she has some sort of miracle play with the snaps, right? She's likely going to be taking this damage from the Bloodrot.
Well, remember, she runs no blues.
Well, yeah, I was saying miracle play because theoretically you're going to get the card from the Snatch, and then if you snaps and extend, maybe you could do something where you chain together and draw additional cards.
I see.
But otherwise, let's be honest, she's going to be down all the way to 6.
Yeah.
Brody here might not like his hand because he's already thrown 1 card out to block and considering full blocking this Snatch just to deny her the ability to have an arsenal. And I don't necessarily dislike this play because if you know that she's already going to be going down to 6 from the Bloodrot Pox, you're still very much in control of this, and you can be patient and that is what's going to happen. So not only denies the Arsenal, denies the Courage token as well, because that Iron Sun Versus was activated, and the Bloodrot Pox does go off.
Yuki Bender, I think, down to 6 here. They're going to represent, I'm sure, that on the life total counter momentarily. Brody has given all the cards for this, but another Ravenous Rabble. That was just random off the top from the Codex. That's a really great card here. If you're just going to have to be able to go, you block 3 arrows on the turn, something that you might have been a little bit priced into, given that it's hard to find the go again without the Snapdragon Scalers. But the Ravenous Rabble, if you're just going to send a card and then keep a card in Arsenal for your next turn, that's representing well over half of Yuki Bender's total life at this point in the game.
Yeah, that's actually wild that it's a Ravenous there. Again, also still has the Fyendal Spring Tunic live, has the 1 card in hand. Earlier, we referred to Brody as the conductor of the orchestra, controlling the tempo of this game, but I would like to change that. I would like to say is the conductor of this Ranger train of damage, because he is choo-chooing through her health. Yes, I know that was quite the reach, and I apologize.
No, we forgive you. We forgive you.
All right, so the Ravenous is still going to connect for 1.
1 damage coming across.
Now the question becomes, are we going to activate the Death Dealer? We are. So we're going to load this Drill Shot, draw the card.
I'm realizing the Soulbound Resolve, I think, might have prevented one of the damage from the Bloodrot, which is why she only represented going to 7. Because I think, if you charge on the turn, it prevents the damage, right? So it'll prevent the Bloodrot tokens. That's what's going on there. So the Drill Shot is now going to be coming in 4/4, thanks to that Fyendal's Spring Tunic. Again, powerful effect here. Going to go ahead and draw the card off the Death Dealer. So strong, send more damage, and threaten the counter on those armor pieces that Yuki Bender has been absolutely, sitting on and holding and coveting for powerful on hit effects. And this Drill Shot says, I don't care if you wanted to keep those armor pieces. You're either giving me cards, giving me those armor, or I'm going to make them block for a little less.
And she is going to block with a Celestial Cataclysm and the Soul Bond Resolve here. Fully covers it up. Will, however, be giving up that chest piece as a result. So no more ability to charge and get that damage prevention. It's going to make future Bloodrot Poxes that much more difficult. Brody, she knows what went into his arsenal, obviously. He revealed it with the Ravenous Rabble. And she says, okay, well, I don't like that. I am going to make you pay 2 cards, potentially, to keep it, or if she does have some sort of attack reaction, for example, she could still go over the top. We do know that she has them in her list.
Command and Conquer here, threatening to take out, I believe it was a Lace with Inertia that we saw off the top from the Ravenous Rabble. I don't think we...
Yeah, I think he's looking to see, have we seen any attack reactions?
Does she have any cards left? I'm not sure if she has any cards left.
She may not.
She blocked the Drill Shot.
Yeah, she blocked the Drill Shot with the Celestial Cataclysm and the Soulbound Resolve. Obviously, pitch to pay for the Command and Conquer.
Yeah, so this is gonna be it for Yuki on the turn. Just coming in for the 6, threatening that Lace with Inertia. Does Brody want to give a couple cards over to the cause here and see what he can string together with 2 cards and that arsenal? Still plenty you can do with that as the Azalea player. And Yuki Bender, again, sitting at a pretty precarious 6. 1 dominated arrow can close this game. Is Brody going to try to go for it on this turn? If you take the 6 damage, you lose a whole card. You can draw another one with your Death Dealer, but that card in the arsenal doesn't just represent a powerful effect. It represents the ability to opt with the Skullbone Crosswrap. So critical for these Azalea decks. You don't always know what your turn's going to look like when you're having to think about blocks. You have to think about, what could it be off the top of my deck? How much do I care about being able to check the top of my deck before I start my turn? So Brody's going to have to keep all that in consideration. When facing down just one of the staples of this game.
Yeah.
One of the most classic cards we have in Command and Conquer.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because the simple math here, and it does look like Brody is going to take it. I was about to say the simple math here is you can take the damage and lose 1 card, or you can block it and lose 2 cards. That's the simple math. But as you were rightfully pointing out, having the card in your arsenal does not only turn on Skullbone Crosswrap, but it also makes activating Azalea very easy. So once you opt, if you like what you see, you could turn something on and do the dominate. But because He was already sitting on a red in the ledger in his hand. I think this is potentially the right call, saying, I will just let the one card go and then use my hand to power up this red in the ledger. We are going to read the glide path here, which also allows him to look at the top card of his deck even further. He might, if he likes the arrow there, he might just consider even still sending this away to dominate something else that's big. With her only at 6 health, the on-hit of slowing down her turn is not nearly as important as the on-hit of potential death. Turns out that's the best on-hit in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Again, we've been talking about these nasty on-hit effects of the Azalea deck all game long, but at this point, we just need to find damage. Damage will close this thing out. No more powerful on-hit than that, so we're just going to go ahead and Seek and Destroy to come in with a red in the ledger. This is a +6 on a 5, going to be 11 here. Again, yes, you can only do one thing if any of that sneaks through, and we do see maybe a potential powerful combo piece in the hand for Yuki Lee Bender, but before she can think about anything she's doing on her own turn, she's got to face down one of the most powerful on-hit effects in the game in this red in the ledger, coupled with the Seek and Destroy. So if it hits at all, actually, not only will she be able to only do one thing on the turn, she can't even keep anything in the arsenal. If she found like a combo piece or a defense reaction that would be massive here, she wouldn't be able to keep it, so she might be having to put a number of cards in front of this and maybe even a piece of armor.
I was going to say, I suspect we're going to see something like a 3-card block and then also using some armor that would allow you to cover this and then also still put one of those key cards in the arsenal. As you said, there is a key combo piece. I believe it was the Lumina Ascension. Now, there is a critical piece in every combo. Every combo in Flesh and Blood requires you to still be alive to pull it off. So
That's true.
Covering the damage here is also a very important piece of that, but does stop all of the on-hits, does just pass the turn, arsenal that card, move on. Brody gets to have this card in the arsenal, come into this turn, continuing to threaten the life of Yuki. And so, yes, that Lumina is there, but if he can push enough damage and force her to continue to use 2 or 3 cards per turn to block, that very much limits the impact of that card. He is very much in control of his own destiny at this point in time. Does use the Skullbone to reveal a Seek and Destroy. Gets to look at the top card of the deck. If it's a spicy arrow, we could see that Azalea activated and the Dominate begin.
Brody at 23.
You know, if it's not a spicy arrow, we also could see him just play the Seek and Destroy because it once again threatens the arsenal. So another very powerful effect. We had talked about the importance of assembling the combo with the Centauri Sabers, and you had rightfully pointed out that with cards like Seek and Destroy being able to interrupt the arsenal as well as threaten the on-hits from the red in the ledger, that's why we felt like she was playing the Raiden version. It's a little bit more consistent, less combo-oriented, and this is exactly what you were referring to. So this was a great read by you, Sam. Bravo.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. Thank you, good sir. I mean, listen, it feels like at this point the way forward is pretty clear for both players. Brody's had a... And when I say pretty clear, what I meant is unintelligible. Yeah. As I stumble through my words.
It's so clear that I can speak in tongues, and people will still understand.
No, but the way forward is clear for Brody. You have to keep the pressure on. You have to continue to force the cards out of Yuki's hand, leak damage where you can, and then find the avenue to set up that powerful dominate arrow to just close the game from there. That's going to require you to utilize your Skullbone Crash Wrap. Make sure you have cards on the top of your deck, like an arrow that you want to be able to dominate enough pitch. And if you are continuing to force the card out of Yuki's hand, you won't be under enough pressure to, force you to make any tough decisions. And for Yuki, you kind of have to hope that Brody is unable to do so. Looks like this is going to be another tough way for Yuki to try to stay alive, as Go Again's hard to come by sometimes in these Azalea decks, and Ravenous Rabble for Go Again may be the best way.
Well, this is also very unfortunate for her. This is kind of giving her the pieces of information that Brody had available, right? He opted to keep the card that was on the top and then reveals it with the Ravenous, so we saw that was another non-attack action that's a red, which means that he's got an arrow that he is very, very happy with somewhere in his hand. And he's going to swing with this Ravenous Rabble and then use that Seek and Destroy along with potentially one other card in hand and then ship that arrow. She knows she can't take a bunch of damage, but she also knows the worst is yet to come. I don't know if the folks at home can see it because I know that there is a wonderful graphic giving additional information, but we have a bit of a wide screen here in the broadcast booth, and I can't help but notice that the most powerful thing Brody has at his disposal is on the table, and that is a half-eaten ham sandwich.
It's true. Known for it, the Earl of Sandwich himself. The Ravenous Rabble is going to go ahead and connect 2 damage, getting across the Iron Song versus there. So finally, Yuki maybe wanting to save it for more powerful on-hit effects, but just having to give the armor to stay alive. And the reason we're going to keep another pump here on the top of the deck is because of Boltyn shots, another way to get the go again. And if it hits, we're going to get to reload here. So that's 10 damage that Yuki just simply can't let through.
Cannot let through. This has to be a full block out because, as you rightfully pointed out, the reload is not just, oh, I get to put that card in the arsenal, but with 2 resources floating, that means it's also going to be fired. So if you take additional damage here and then you also have to deal with another threat, that's basically going to be the end. The other reason that you really want to block out this Boltyn shot is because you've spent so long trying to get that Lumina in your arsenal that the Seek and Destroy is just going to ruin that for you. Now, the one thing she has working for her here is that when you play non-attack actions, the combat chain breaks. So the Iron Sun Versus that was used to block that Ravenous Rabble gets the -1 counter, but it does become available to be used as a blocking tool again. So if she can perhaps use a couple of cards here and then the rest of her equipment, that might be an opportunity to survive to see another hand.
It might be. It might be. But the damage is leaking through. Brody is finding the pressure. These Ravenous Rabbles coming in absolutely huge. Codex of Frailty as well, allowing him to reutilize those Ravenous Rabbles to continue to find the go again, even without those critical pieces that we've seen in a Warmonger's meta like the Enlightened Strike here. But listen, this is a little bit of damned if you do and damned if you don't, because this Boltyn shot for 10, yeah, you can't let it hit. But even if you don't let it hit, there's another card still sitting in Brody's hand that he's left on the table for us quite nicely so that we can make sure we know it's there, so that even if the reload doesn't come across, Brody's next turn is going to be starting off with that Skullbone Crosswrap as well, and the optionality of the opt effect so powerful, because at this point Yuki's just been unable to finish to completely block all of these arrows out, and is simply having to leak damage due to the powerful effects of these pump cards. There's just simply no way for her to stop it all. So from 4, a single powerful dominated arrow is not that hard to come across to close this game out, especially if you're having to give armor on this turn.
Yuki's doing the math, making sure that whatever decision she makes here, it is the correct one, because the importance of this cannot be understated. This is her tournament life on the line. We are in the top 8. We are in the single elimination part of the tournament. We are in the quarterfinals. Both of these players have played very, very well up until this point. And, this is why it's such a hard decision. Now that she's tilted her hand forward, she has a second Lumina in hand. So she has the one in arsenal, finally found the second one. If she can get herself the time to breathe and play 2 Luminas, she might be able to connect and gain some of that health, close the gap. The problem is that the health disparity is so large at this point. I don't think she's ever going to be in a position where she's allowed to do that. Even if there's no relevant on hits, just being down at 4 health with Azalea able to dominate arrows, it's going to be a tough call. But we are going to see the 3 cards from hand, and then, as I said before, the Iron Song can block a second time here. That should cover the 10. She will live to see another hand. We know that it's a Lumina in hand, 1 in arsenal. But this turn means she's just going to have to be passing and drawing up. There's nothing that she can really do here. I mean, she can attack with this Raiden for 0, because sometimes it makes you feel good. It's something I would do. I'll be honest. If I had a turn, I would do this. Why not?
Raiden coming in technically for 0 here. No charge represented. So Brody having to have a think if he wants to go ahead and declare no blocks, thinking what could Yuki have up her sleeve here. We're pretty sure it's a couple Luminas in the hand, but you might...
Oh, yeah, the Spirit.
Oh, so you can play it as an instant?
Yeah.
So it gets +1. It gets +1 thanks to the Lumina, correct?
Yeah, but then that would also allow her to get some of that health gain potentially,
put some cards into the
and not waste one of these, because again, otherwise she's not going to get any value. See, here I thought that this was just one of those, like, I want to feel good about things, but no, there isn't a legitimate decision that's being presented here, and if Brody blocks with this, like worst case scenario, then she has slowed him down a little bit.
this is actually fascinating. Yuki Bender maybe finding a way to get a little more life. All of a sudden, things are heating up once again. That first play of the game, getting that spirit onto the board, is proving to be vital for Yuki to try to find some measure of success here in this game. She's gotten Brody down to 23, which is, you know, a respectable chunk, but certainly not the 4 that she's sitting at, as she is desperately trying to wait to cling to her spot in this tournament and in this game. These Lumina Ascensions, and she has 2, might be a way to get just a couple more life total points and a couple more cards into the soul. The question is that going to be enough with all the pressure that Brody's been putting on, even if she gains 2 more life, heads on up to 6 on something like a double Lumina turn when you haven't been able to charge? So much less effective.
I suppose it doesn't matter whether it is enough or not. It's her only out.
Well,
right?
also,
I do appreciate the playing to the outs.
Also, you know, I'm just looking here at Lumina. It says if you've charged this turn, you may attack an additional time with each weapon you control. So she'd only be able to do this once.
Yeah, I don't think, I was going to say, I don't think this would be a double Lumina turn. This is just simply trying to, honestly, this is trying to force Brody to make a decision, and maybe she knows I'm never going to get the opportunity to do the double Lumina, so this allows me to get value out of 1. And that 1 extra health could still be relevant. But again, also, if he opts to throw a card in front of this, then that eats a card, right? It's 1 less card that Brody is sending my way. And if I'm trying to find breathing room, or if I'm trying to just buy time until maybe he accidentally bricks, draws a hand with, you know, a bunch of non-attacks, something like that, you play to your outs. Even when the game feels like it might be out of reach, you never know what's going to happen. Your opponent might draw a handful of items, for example. If you're playing Bright Light Sealed, you might have a Ranger draw all non-attacks. Or, you know, in the heydays of Briar or Chain, sometimes all of those non-attack actions would brick their hand, and then you get that magic window of opportunity. These are very good players. They know to be patient. They have mental fortitude, and you just continue to play to your outs. As long as you have health, you are still in the game. And yes, we are going to have the Lumina come down. And now Brody's like, all right, what's going on here?
Yeah, so Lumina Ascension. Weapons get +1, and if it hits, reveal the top card of the deck. If it's a light card, we're going to put it into the soul and gain a life, so 1 damage coming across. Yuki now going to reveal the top card of the deck. It looks like that is, I think, going to be a light card.
Yeah.
So
Brody takes the 1, and she gains the life. Gets that value. All right.
Double checking the life total here. Looks like Brody
there we go. And then she
in the game.
is just going to, I think, end there, draw up to 4, and see if she can survive to see another hand.
Only 1 block left on Yuki's equipment. She tried so hard to keep it until she needed it for on-hit effects, but unfortunately challenging to navigate this endgame scenario when the life totals have fallen so low. Gonna see what Brody is able to cobble together. We've used, I think, every Ravenous Rabble now, so need a Codex to recur that effect. How much go again can he find? How much dominate can he find? And critically, how much damage is Brody going to be able to find here? Laced with Inertia revealed to the Skullbone Crosswrap. Got a card off the top. Going to go ahead and check that out. See what cards are left in the hand here. Now looking down at the list for Brody, one thing I do want to point some attention to. We've got 2 more copies of Rain Razors we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, we have not seen.
And that card was pitched early, but there's a couple more probably, unless they were sided out, floating around in that deck. When your opponent's down all the way to 5, Rain Razors can be a combat trick, so to speak, able to push some on-hit effects through, but also at this point could maybe be the difference between life and death for Yuki Bender.
You know, it's funny that you were looking at that, because at the same time I was looking at Yuki's list saying, okay, what is it that we haven't seen there? And again, I don't know if maybe she sides them out for this matchup, but if you're running into a hero that you know has Dominate on the menu, I can't help but notice we've seen 0 Sink Belows, none of the Fate Foreseens. Those defense reactions that are so coveted when you're trying to stay alive would be a pretty big deal. And hey, speaking of coveted, red in the ledger with a couple of laces on here. That's Inertia and Frailty. Casually threatening 11. That is another big arrow. And unfortunately, due to the awkwardness of the breakpoints here, will likely be demanding all of Yuki's hand if she wants to cover it.
Yeah, read in the ledger, 2 of those diseases from the pits attached to it, inertia and frailty, and of course,
Now,
the ability to only act one action.
I was just about to say, if you're just trying to stay alive, you could also. Oh, we're gonna use the soul shield. Okay, so this will cover it as well, and then you'll end up with something in soul. That works out. I was gonna say, if you like your hand and you're trying to stay alive and come. Oh, there it is.
There's the rain
The
razors,
soul
folks.
read from Sam O'Byrne, noticing the rain razors. I was just about to say, if you're trying to stay alive and you like your hand, what you could have considered doing was like 2 blocking and throwing the warband in front, and then coming back with Illumina. But none of that matters because now you only get 1 action anyway, and you have frailty, and inertia means that Lumina is gone. You've got to get some value out of it. So I would expect we're going to see the Raiden attack again, and then.
Well, I mean, the question is, though, does the frailty token mean it would be from -1 to 0? I actually don't even know how that works in this game. Frailty is going to give the attack -1. It's coming in for 0.
Yeah, she's just letting it go.
Yeah, I don't think you even can do the Lumina play because you'd go from -1 to 0 thanks to that frailty token. So the rain razors there, absolutely massive for Brodie Spurlock. Oh, this hall just got very quiet.
It got very quiet,
yeah. The team sealed event
hey.
started, yeah.
That third rain razors that somebody was talking about, it's just casually in the arsenal. We see it now with the activation of the Skullbone cross wrap.
Oh,
so,
wow. Yeah, they really were just
I would
clumped
like
together.
to say that after this event, you, sir, should go to the local casino and place some bets.
Yeah, maybe. Been playing some Ranger in my day. I know when I have seen and have not seen Rain Razors because that's a scary card. Let's go ahead and see how Brody wants to resolve the Skullbone cross wrap here. Yuki not dead yet, clinging to life, navigating this end game well, making sure she's trying to see how many threats can she run Brodie Spurlock out of, because those were a lot of red cards in the graveyard there for Brody. Have only been able to see 1 Codex of Frailty as well, so...
Yeah, the Codex is honestly the scary card right now because Yuki does not have an arsenal. So that would be a great way to peel away a potential blocker. I think that is potentially the scariest play of all, and we have only seen the one. And even further, if Brody likes his hand, we know that he loves to jam back in the Ravenous Rabble because that gives him additional info. Instead, we are going to use Azalea, so we have the Spire sniping coming into the arsenal, which of course means you get to look at the top 2 cards of your deck and do some reordering. This is very classic Brody. We're going to read the glide path as well.
This is just it. Even though it's just a blue Spire sniping, I don't know if this is going to be enough damage or too much damage for Yuki to take care of, because here's 12 with Dominate. Blue Spire sniping, sometimes it's the key to victory here, folks. 3, 6, 9 on top of it with the Lace with Frailty, the Seek and Destroy, and the Read the Glide Path. Blue Spire sniping here, not a powerful arrow in and of itself, but these Dominate effects and the pump effects might be enough to take him over the finish line. Let's see.
You know, that's going to be it. If I had a nickel for every time that the card he chooses to dominate to win the game happened to be a blue Spire sniping, I would have 15 cents, but it's weird that it's happened 3 times.
Looking at Yuki there, going ahead and showing the Lumina Ascension to Mr. Spurlock, saying, listen, I was trying so hard to get this off, but that frailty token really made it challenging at the end of the game. I don't know if that 1 point of life would have made a difference against the entirety of that huge dominated arrow. The blue Spire sniping there, enough to close it out. So Brodie Spurlock for 2 times in 2 days has taken out Yuki Lee Bender to move on to the top 4 of the 20K Invitational Tournament here at the Realm Rumble. What an incredible game by both players, and of course, massive congratulations to Yuki Lee Bender for her run in the tournament. On Boltyn, no less.
On Boltyn, took it to all the way to the top 8. Unfortunately, her run ends there. Brodie Spurlock moving on to the
top 4.
Top 4.
Top 4. The semifinals.
The semifinals.
Wait for the young gun himself. So
I'm sure he's got more ham sandwiches as well.
I would guarantee you he has more ham sandwiches. However, we also have more games of Flesh and Blood that we've got to get going to. So that was a bit of a long one. Not only because of this, but we know Brodie's brother likes to take his time. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break here. So we set up the next match, which is going to be another just unbelievable one, because this top 8 could not be topped. This is going to be Ethan Van Sant on Leviah, Shadowborn Abomination versus none other than Michael Hamilton, one of the 2 world champions this game has ever known on Bravo Star of the Show. That's a matchup that Ethan likes. It's a matchup.
No, let me stop you right there. It is not Bravo Star of the show.
Sorry.
It is Showstopper. Let me stop you to make sure that they understand. It is Showstopper. Star of the show. That's for the Living Legend event that's going to be going on today.
That's true.
There will be one of those here, and I am looking forward to the top 8 Starvos again.
I would hazard to say that Star of the show is not what Ethan wants to see, but the Showstopper is a matchup that I know he does like. The question is does he feel as confident when facing the world champ himself? Knowing Ethan, I think he feels as confident as ever, and knowing Michael Hamilton, that's a cold-hearted killer right there. And by cold-hearted killer, I do mean one of the sweetest men I've ever met. So we're going to go.
So kind, so polite, but also the angel of death.
We're going to go ahead and take a quick break so we can let those two get situated. So don't get anywhere. The quarterfinals continue right after this.